Hi, everybody. I'm Marty Grimmink, and welcome to Virtual Travel Impact Challenge Day 2. I wanted to start off by going to our amazing International Action Hub. For those who haven't been there yet, I'm staring at my screen. I'm gonna share it to all of you. And here we go. It's been really fun watching everybody come on, and I see a few of you are on there now. Really filling up, and I'm learning so much about each of you and where the places that you're from and all the things that you want to share. Just incredible stuff. So I can't wait to see more today. We really want to hear all your different thoughts and ideas. And, you know, there's some really big questions in here. So I look forward to hearing your answers as we go. I'm going to stop that share. There's some really awesome events today, some amazing speakers. So don't forget to go on to your agenda, or you can either get it on your email. It was sent there, or it's on the event hub, and it's also on Miro. So you can't miss out. There's always lots of different ways to get into the Zooms. This is the one streamed conversation of the day. Everything else, you can join a small group, and you can actually chat away with our speakers, with other participants, and we really encourage you to come and participate in all of those. So today, we want to talk a lot about sustainability. And we have an amazing speaker who I'm going to invite in now. Rachel, can you bring her along? Conversation. Our speaker today is Regan Stuhlbaum, and she is calling in from the East Coast in the US. Hi, Regan.
Hi.
Hey, it's joining me. Regan's one of my favorite people, and I've known her for many years in the travel industry. And I'm going to have you introduce yourself, but I will preface it by saying that you're playing two roles today. So you work in your daytime role in tourism at NYC and Company, and you also, as part of that, work with Tourism Cares. So I'd love you to explain more about what both of those are and how they interact, how they interrelate with each other.
Okay, so hi everybody. I'm really excited to be here. I'll tell you a little bit about me and what I do. As Marty said, I work with NYC and Company. NYC and Company is the official tourism and marketing agency for New York City. So we're responsible for bringing tourists into New York City, which is a really fun and exciting job. When I first got it, I said, wait a minute, you're going to pay me to tell people all the fun things to do in New York City? And they said, that's pretty much the job. And I said, I'll take it. So that was 21 years ago, and I'm still there and I'm still doing it. And it's such a fun job to have. I started off there in what we call our tourism development department. And so for most of my 20 years there, my job has been all about working with tour operators and other travel partners to teach them what's happening in New York, how do they partner with the companies in New York to promote and sell their tours to New York. Going out to trade shows and speaking with clients, explaining to them how they can best take advantage of everything that's going on in New York. And that was a really fun job. For the past few years, I've been part of the membership department of NYC and Company. And my main focus there is teaching the local businesses how to work with all of those tour operators that I was originally talking with. So for me, there's a big focus on working with the smaller businesses, some of the businesses that are outside of the main tourist districts of New York, the Times Square area that most people are familiar with. And the idea really is to help spread traffic out throughout the whole city, not just to spread the traffic out, but also to spread out the economic benefit of tourism. So tourism is a huge economic driver in many areas. And in New York City, it really is one of the largest economic drivers for the city. So it's really nice to be able to spread that out and see all of New York City get the benefits of that. And so we go out and teach businesses how to do that. So it's not as easy as just saying, oh, we want tourists to come. You can do that and you will get some of them, but to actually work through tour operators and people who bring in travelers kind of in bulk, there are certain protocols and etiquettes to doing that, certain ways of doing business. So we teach them how to do that.
Yeah. Wow. So that's really like, I guess in the case of New York, right, there's 5 boroughs, right? And everybody knows all the big sites that are in Manhattan, right? And you mentioned like Times Square or like Empire State Building, right? But you're saying basically you're driving them out to other parts of the city, parts of Manhattan or parts of the other boroughs to spread
Exactly.
that.
And the idea is too, I think right now people are so interested in kind of going off the beaten path and kind of authentic tourism and really learning about different neighborhoods and different cultures. And New York City is really kind of like an epicenter of that. There's so much within New York. I mean, in Queens is one of the boroughs or kind of one of the neighborhoods of New York City. There are more languages spoken in Queens than in any other area in the world. So they say there that one of the subways, you can take one of the subways through, they call it the International Express train, because you can get off in every stop and have a microcosm of a different country there, different shopping, different food, different culture. And so we really try to encourage visitors to come out. It's great to come and see all of the highlights of New York City. I mean, there's nothing like it, but come and do that, but come and sort of get the authentic New York. People often come to New York and they say, oh, it's a great place to visit, but they wouldn't want to live there. But they never leave kind of that touristy area, so they don't get to see so much of what else New York is about.
Yeah, I love that. But, even as a New Yorker, originally, it's amazing. Like when I was living there, how many places I'd be like, I didn't know that existed. There's so much to see.
And
So
I've worked for the Tourism Bureau for 20 something years, and I'm still finding and discovering things, partly because there's so much to see and discover, and partly because it always changes. So there's always something new to see,
amazing.
to promote, which is really fun.
Okay, so we're not in the chat with the youth that are watching, but and they will come on throughout the day. Not everybody will be on right now, just because of time zones. Everybody's from all over the world. But my question set that I want to put here to them, and maybe we'll put it on the board as well, is like, how many boroughs have you been to in New York City, if you've been there at all? Like, first, have you been to New York City, because it is such a hub that people do tend to go there and prioritize it as a destination. Mm-hmm. But then 2, how many of the boroughs have you been to? And there are 5.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see that number.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk a little bit about that sustainability, because I'm sustainability is really important to this generation, and it's really important in our future. And, when what you're talking about is that economic side to it, what are also, when we talk about sustainability in travel, what are we talking about? What are the negative sides to this that make it difficult, or the things that we have to look for?
Sure. So, tourism sometimes does get a bad reputation, right? There's things like the carbon and the fuel of flying. There's concern of over tourism has become a big phrase these days, that people are coming into destinations and kind of overrunning them and destroying the natural order of things, whether that be too many people in a city like Venice, or going into a place like the Galapagos where they're destroying the natural part of it. So these are, and they're real problems. They're issues that the industry needs to deal with. But that is something that I think everybody is starting to look at and take very seriously. As I said, this is something that we're addressing at NYC & Company with how we are looking to help the city develop its tours. And that's a big part of my tourism cares role as well. So as Marty mentioned, I'm also part of Tourism Cares. I'm a board member there. And Tourism Cares is an organization that really promotes and encourages responsible travel. We want to make sure that travel is being socially responsible, economically responsible when it comes to climate change. And we are really we unite the industry to address these issues together. And the idea is let's all pull together and let's make sure that we're safeguarding the places and the people of travel and helping everybody thrive through that. And there are many different ways to do that. You want to get into some of that? Or?
Yeah, that'd be great to hear that.
it's a lot of it is really just being thoughtful and conscious about where you're traveling, how you're traveling. It can be as simple as carrying a refillable water bottle with you. When you look at, most of you have probably heard about the problems that we're having with plastic, and it's worldwide. And sometimes you think, okay, so here in the US, we're thinking, okay, well, if I use a water bottle, it's okay because it's the water bottles are piling up in areas where I don't live. Here we're recycling everything, but it doesn't always work that way, right? It gets sold, it gets brought over to another destination, it gets dumped, and so everybody has to take responsibility on that front. And so part of it is just doing it for yourself. Part of it is setting an example. I mean, how many times do you kind of forget to bring your water bottle, and you go out and you buy one, and then I look around and I'm like, oh, are people looking at me? Are they staring at me? Or I see somebody else with their refillable water bottle. I'm like, oh, I should have brought it. I'm so embarrassed. And that even happens at Tourism Cares events sometimes. So it could be just start small. We say, sustainability is a journey, and no step is too small. So talk to people about it too. A lot of it is just awareness. Start talking to people about it. Everything we do at Tourism Cares is based off of the UN Sustainability Development Goals. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but so in 2015, the UN General Assembly got together and they created these 17 interlinked goals. They range from everything, they address things like poverty and climate change and building sustainable communities, taking care of, making sure everybody has clean water, making sure people live in clean air. So there's 17 of them, and I encourage all of you, if you have any interest at all in it, to take a look. Just look up UN Sustainable Development Goals. And so we really, everything that we do at Tourism Cares works off of at least one of those goals. Every project ties into one of them. And tourism is actually one of the few industries that really touches upon all 17 of those goals. In fact, we did an event in New York. We probably had about 75 people in a room, tourism people, and we asked all of them to take a little sticky and attach it to whichever sustainability goal their business focused on, and we hit all of them. So it's being aware of those and working within it. Like I said, we try to make sure that we're spreading out the traffic. We try to make sure that there's economic development. It's being aware when you're traveling. If you're working through a tour operator, research that tour operator, look and see, does that tour operator have a focus on sustainability and socially responsible tourism? And if they do, great. And if they don't, maybe consider using a different tour operator. So it's little steps along the way that help with that.
That's amazing. And I love that you brought that up because the UN Sustainable Development Goals are really a big part of your big year as well. And our mission behind it is actually stemming from the goal to reduce inequalities. So what we find is that we're trying to open up a more equitable platform for more young people to have their voice heard, to have ways that they can enhance their skills and to connect with others. And so I love that because we know and we recognize how many of these goals need to be addressed and how many of these goals need solutions. And from our philosophy is that if we can get more young people working on it, we're going to have more solutions ahead, giving them those opportunities to do that. I would love you to actually explain, though, about what a tour operator actually does, just because I don't know if everybody knows what that is.
Sure. So a tour operator is essentially somebody who packages and sells travel. So when you are taking a trip and you have somebody who's booking your airline or booking your hotel, booking the tours that you're doing, the attractions that you're seeing, that's all coming from a tour operator. Some of you may be more familiar with working with a travel agent, which is very similar. There's different levels. So a travel agent will buy all of that product from a tour operator. So there's kind of like a pyramid where it builds up. But anytime you're talking about a travel trade or travel trade professional, tour operator, travel agent, those are people who are buying, packaging, and reselling travel.
Yeah, great. And that's even some of the online systems that maybe some of our youth are familiar with if they've gone and booked.
Absolutely. Yeah.
or a specific attraction, as you said, that they may have bought their ticket through a platform, and those are still considered, right, a version of a tour operator.
Absolutely. So we call those OTAs, online travel agencies, and that is all of these fall under the umbrella of the travel trade.
Nice. So I want to come back to like why do you tell me more about like why travel is important to you and why has it become an integral part of your life?
Oh, travel is so much to me. Travel is magical, and it's really it's special. For me, I think the most important and the most exciting part of travel is the people that you meet along the way. So some of my best friends today are people that I met through my travels. I took a couple of different trips in the 90s, and some of those people that I met on my trips are my best friends. Some of the people that I met through people on those trips are my best friends today. And that's, 20 something years ago. So, and even the people that you don't stay in touch with, I have so many fond memories of people that I met along the way, and just speaking to people from different cultures. And sometimes different cultures is even kind of within the same country. It's just going to a different part of the same country, and just speaking with people who live life a little bit differently than you do. I think that's so exciting. And another thing that travel really did for me was kind of give me my love of the outdoors. So I did not grow up hiking and camping and doing things like that. I was a city girl. My parents were like, there's a bug. Um, and I went abroad for a semester of college, and I went to Israel, and they brought us on the most amazing hikes and trips and tours. And I just came back impassioned, and I've had so many great explorations since then. And I just never want to stop. It's so much fun.
Yeah, it's amazing. I feel like every trip just transforms you, just the people that you meet, both like other tourists or as well as the people locally, right? It's just, I can think about.
Absolutely. Both.
Mhm.
And yeah, and it's incredible. And it really is a small world. So we actually just got back from the Grand Canyon. So we were lucky enough to go out to Arizona this past week. And we were in the Grand Canyon, and my husband's a teacher. And all of a sudden we heard people going, Mr. Stolbaum, Mr. Stolbaum. And so in the Grand Canyon, 2,000 miles away from home, we ran into some of his students. And my time in the Grand Canyon before that was also 20 something years ago. And we were hiking on this path where the guide said, it's not a well-traveled path. You're never going to see anybody. We ran into two people, and we went to college with them.
Wow.
Yeah, small world encounters. Most of them are meeting people from outside your community, which is, that's the real heart of travel. But it is funny how, I've gone to different countries, different states, different places, and run into people we know there.
Yes.
Just always an adventure. It's always something different. And
Always.
something that came up on one of the other discussions yesterday was the idea of traveling alone, and how empowering that can be. And that really resonated with me, because there are a couple of times that I did take trips completely by myself, and it was truly empowering. The idea that I was going and doing this on my own was incredible. And you really do go and do things that you never would have done before, because you're just, you kind of just get to be this person that's not answering to anybody else, and kind of, you can go where you want and do what you want, and try on these different sizes of you, or these different, sides of you, and really just jump in. And it was such an incredible experience. So I encourage all of you to do that at some point, even if it's just for a night. Like, I've gone where I've met up with people and they're meeting me the day after, and I had like a whole day in the country by myself, and went to the local youth hostel and just sat and had coffee until I started chatting with people. And next thing you know, we're all running around touring together, and it just, such great experiences.
Yes. I can absolutely 100% relate. I feel like those are all my favorite moments in time too. And just the growing of being on your own. And I hope that a lot of the youth take that through this week, right? None of them know each other. So meeting new friends through this process, and then actually you have new friends to go visit all over the world. And we have seen that happen over and over again through Year by Year.
Well, it's been fun because one of the things I live in New Jersey now, but I had lived in New York City for many years, right in Manhattan. And when I was doing all of this traveling, where I met these people that I'm still friends with today, and it's really nice that people want to come to New York. So I think, if I lived in some little town nobody ever heard of, they wouldn't be so quick to visit. But because they did live in New York City and they thought, oh, there's a free couch to stay on, they came. And but now some of them even come visit me in New Jersey. So
That would be me.
anytime.
So what, now that we're going in a world, hopefully in a world post-COVID restrictions, but we've also learned a lot through COVID restrictions where the environment has been less impacted by people and a lot of, but then our economics have been really impacted by the lack of tourism and the lack of, just buying and, our economic drivers. What, how can tourism take us into the next realm, and how does specifically sustainability in tourism take us into a new period of how we look at travel?
That's a great question. And I think that one thing to always keep in mind is the power of your dollar, right? Your dollar has power, and you get to decide how to use that. So again, it's for each individual to really be conscious of what they're supporting, and if it's important to you, make sure that you are supporting sustainable tourism. Tourism Cares has put together a program called the Meaningful Travel Platform, and if you're interested in looking at that, I encourage you to go to the Tourism Cares website. It's tourismcares.org, and you can look at their Meaningful Travel Platform, which a lot of it is focused on business to business, helping other businesses develop responsible tourism. But it's really interesting to see how we do teach and not teach, but really kind of guide and encourage. And a lot of what we do is try to connect the proper resources so that everybody has the resources at their fingertips. And a lot of that could be interesting for any of you who might be interested in looking into that further. We also work, we've partnered with other NGOs, non-governmental organizations who are interested in sustainability. And we have the Future of Tourism Coalition. So the Future of Sustainable Tourism Coalition. And that's several different organizations working together to make sure that as tourism does develop, it is being developed responsibly.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. And if any of our youth want to get involved in how this goes forward, how can they get involved? Is there a way that they can, participate with things that go on with Tourism Cares, or is it through tour operators and the industry professionals?
It's a little bit of everything. So I would say if you are interested in it, start off by going to the Tourism Cares website and taking a look at that. You can always reach out to me. I'm happy to answer questions or help guide anybody through the process. And it's something that I really do encourage for anybody who's interested in tourism or whatever you're interested in. It is get out there and explore and ask questions and send emails and make calls, because people will, and this came up, I know it came up yesterday in some of the sessions as well, particularly in the tourism industry. It's such a warm, caring, friendly industry where people really kind of love each other and want to help each other. It's one of the few industries where competitors can still be best friends. And everybody really does want to help. There are also a lot of tourism programs where you can get certificates or you can get degrees in tourism, and most of those do have a sustainable aspect to it. But go out and do informational interviews, call people, ask them if they'll spend, ask them questions, ask them if they'll spend a little bit of time talking to you, because they will, and they'll lead you to somebody else who will lead you to something that you'll be like, oh my God, this is what I need to do. This is where I belong.
That is so true. And I'm glad you brought up informational interviews, actually. So for any of the youth who don't know what that is, we actually have a step-by-step guide about that and how to do it and how to work in your network. And that is all up on our platform. So it's part of our action curriculum. So I love that you just brought that up, because that was really great. As well as all the UN Sustainable Development Goals, they're all embedded in our action, our Take Action curriculum. So everybody has access to that for the next 3 months. You have free coaching alongside of it that happens weekly. So you'll be hearing more and more about that for those who aren't aware of that curriculum. So Regan, I also want to ask you the sort of your big year question that we always ask everybody is like, what inspired where you are today? What was your big year that inspired this?
So I always wanted to work in travel, but sort of just didn't work out that way. I ended up in corporate communications, and I worked with, I was doing investor relations and public relations for biotech and pharmaceutical companies. And I loved it. It was really interesting, but I had all of these friends that worked in the travel industry. They all worked for this one adventure travel company. And I met them through a trip I did. I did one of these trips, and it turned out that they had an office in New Jersey. And through just being on the phone with them, booking trips, because everybody is so friendly, I started talking to one of the women in the office, and she's like, "Oh, we're going to be in the city. You should come and hang out with us." And I did, and I became great friends with everybody that worked in the company. And I thought, I love what I do, but these guys are they're having so much fun. They're doing the coolest thing. And I quit my job. My parents were going to have a heart attack, I think. I quit my job and decided I'm going to work and travel. And I went and I traveled around Ecuador for 3 weeks, and I came home and I was like, okay, I'm in travel now. But I did, yeah. Best thing I ever did. I ended up, I took some classes that in a travel program, and again, went to every one of my teachers and said, "Hey, can you talk to me? Can I pick your brain?" They brought in guest speakers. I went up to every guest speaker. I said, "Can I talk to you? Can I pick your brain?" And one of my teachers actually worked at NYC and Company at the time. She was the vice president of tourism there. And she said, "I'm looking for a tourism sales manager. If anybody's interested, let me know." And I went up to her after class. I was like, "I'm not interested in that." I'm like, "I don't do sales. I'm not a salesperson, but I just want to pick your brain about some other things." And we were talking, we were walking to the subway together, chatting away. By the time we parted at the subway, I had an interview set up for the next day. And lo and behold, boom, I ended up going to work at NYC and Company.
Wow.
And how I ended up in this industry. And like I said, I took a pay cut. But I never looked back, and I love what I do. And I think that's really important. So I said, you can't, people say, "What do you want to do? What do you want to do?" I'm sure all of you, as you're growing up and going through school and trying to figure it out. And it's not always easy to say what you want to do or what you think you would love doing. It's really hard to figure it out. So you're not always going to know what you're going to love doing. But I would say when you are doing something, do something you love. And if you don't love it, keep looking.
Yes. Great.
Now while you're young, because later you're going to then you'll be weighed down with responsibilities and bills. And then it's not going to be so easy to change your job. So.
You never know. I've seen it. But yeah, that's amazing. I love how you went from one industry to another, right? I think some people worry that they can't switch industries later on, but it's also a great lesson in following that passion, right? And seeing where that takes you. And, and it certainly has fueled you. I can always feel like your enthusiasm and your passion for travel, and you bring that to everybody, which I just think is just amazing. Well, thank you so much for all your time today. It's such a pleasure to have you on here. And tomorrow we into a lot of talk about other specific areas of tourism. And we have some really incredible panels of people,
Yes.
talking about different
all my buddies on there.
Yeah. But I think it's a great leading point. I'm so glad that you spoke with us today, because sustainability is just such a driver, and it's such an important topic right now, and it's so front and center. So that whole aspect of it is just really essential, and I appreciate your time.
It was my pleasure. And I think it falls into everything. So I don't think you don't have to be passionate about sustainability in and of itself. Your goal doesn't have to be to go out there and be a sustainable tourism person. It falls into everything. So just if you try to keep some awareness and bring some sustainability to whatever it is that you're doing, then it will spread out into the rest of the world and make it a better place.
Nice.
But it's been
Amazing.
so much fun talking to you, and I wish I could meet all of you. I wish you all good luck in everything that you do, and enjoy the program.
Thanks so much, Regan.
Thanks, Marty.
Thanks for joining me today. So just to finish up, we have the mural board is open, and I can see a bunch of you on there right now in the background of my screen. And then we also have virtual hangouts, fireside chat, leadership sessions, just some phenomenal programming ahead. So please make sure you look at your schedule. We also posted on the mural board, as you know, pop-up, as Diana said yesterday, pop-up events start to happen. There will be some pop-up open sessions to gather groups, but as well as the fireside chats with Veronica and leadership development sessions. And those are just really amazing times to talk with your peers and to meet other